Capitalism has been the dominant economic system for centuries. But is it really the best way to organize society? Here's a shocking fact: the world's richest 1% own more than half of all global wealth. Meanwhile, nearly 4 billion people, over half the world's population, live on less than $5.50 a day. That's the reality of capitalism today. But what if there's a better way? In this video, we're going to explore whether capitalism is truly the best system or if there are alternatives worth considering. Could a new economic model create a fairer, more sustainable world? We'll look at ideas like democratic socialism, eco-socialism, and even AI-driven economies. Stick around as we dive into some surprising facts and bold ideas that might just change how you think about money, power, and the future of our world. Let's get started. Chapter 1: Capitalism's Hidden Cracks. The unseen failures. Capitalism is often praised for its ability to drive innovation and wealth, but it's not without its problems. At first glance, it might seem like a perfect system. The free market encourages competition, and competition fosters creativity. However, capitalism has deep-rooted flaws that affect more than just the economy. One of the most visible cracks is income inequality. According to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, income inequality in capitalist economies has steadily increased over the past few decades. In the US, the top 1% now holds more wealth than the bottom 90% combined. Beyond wealth distribution, capitalism tends to exploit natural resources at an unsustainable rate. Think about the Amazon rainforest, which continues to be destroyed for profit. This environmental degradation is a direct result of the capitalist drive for growth at all costs. For instance, in 2020, over 11,000 square kilometers of the Amazon were lost, all for the sake of agricultural expansion and timber. Furthermore, capitalism's focus on profit above all else can create short-term gains at the expense of long-term stability. A key example is the 2008 financial crisis, which resulted from banks taking excessive risks. Millions of people lost their homes and jobs, while the richest 1% saw their wealth grow. This isn't just a once-in-a-lifetime event, it's an example of a systemic flaw in capitalist systems that prioritizes profit over people. Another unseen failure is the growing corporate monopoly. Capitalism allows large companies to dominate markets, stifling small businesses and innovation. In 2023, 5 tech giants, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta, controlled over 60% of the global tech market, proving how few companies can truly succeed in such a system. This concentration of power leads to reduced consumer choice and increases the cost of living. Then there's the issue of workers' rights. In many capitalist economies, the drive for cheap labor means that workers are often paid less than they deserve, while CEOs rake in massive salaries. For example, in the US, the average CEO makes 351 times more than their employees, a stark contrast to the 20-to-1 ratio in the 1960s. Chapter 2: Beyond the Dollar. Can we rethink success? What if we could measure success by more than just money? Capitalism often links success directly to wealth accumulation, but that's a narrow view. In Bhutan, the government measures the well-being of its people through gross national happiness, GNH, instead of GDP. This approach emphasizes sustainable development, mental well-being, and community. Research shows that nations focusing on happiness rather than economic growth tend to have better overall health, lower crime rates, and happier citizens. In fact, the World Happiness Report ranks countries based on factors like income, social support, and life expectancy. The top-ranking countries, like Finland and Denmark, often prioritize quality of life over material wealth. It's a reminder that economic growth isn't always the best indicator of success. For example, Finland consistently ranks as one of the happiest countries despite having a modest GDP compared to the US. But what would a world focused on well-being look like? It could involve policies like universal healthcare, paid family leave, and better access to education. In places like Norway, where these policies are already in place, citizens live longer, healthier lives and experience lower levels of stress. These countries consistently outshine the US in quality of life, even though their economic systems aren't based on the high-stakes competition of capitalism. Could we measure success differently in a post-capitalist world? Instead of focusing solely on individual wealth, we could emphasize community well-being and social equality. For instance, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has advocated for a well-being budget that prioritizes mental health, child poverty, and environmental protection. This shift in values could be the key to creating a society where people are more connected and content, rather than obsessed with material success. Additionally, a world that values well-being over profit could also tackle social issues like homelessness. In Finland, a program called Housing First has dramatically reduced homelessness by giving people a place to live without any preconditions. The success of this program shows that focusing on human dignity can have a far-reaching impact. If you're enjoying this discussion, make sure to hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for the next chapters. Chapter 3, From Utopia to Reality, the Case for Democratic Socialism. Could democratic socialism offer a better alternative to capitalism? While the idea of socialism often evokes images of failed regimes, democratic socialism is a different concept. It focuses on ensuring that basic human needs, such as healthcare, education, and housing, are met through democratic processes, rather than left to the whims of the free market. One of the most notable examples of democratic socialism is found in Scandinavian countries like Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. These nations combine a strong social safety net with a market economy, proving that socialism doesn't necessarily mean abandoning capitalism altogether. For instance, in Sweden, free healthcare, education, and generous parental leave policies are standard. In fact, the country ranks as one of the best places to live, with citizens enjoying one of the highest standards of living in the world. A key aspect of democratic socialism is the belief in economic democracy. This would allow workers to have more say in how companies are run, instead of being subject to decisions made by a distant CEO. In the US, the labor share of income, the portion of national income going to workers, has declined from 65% in 1970 to about 58% today. A shift toward economic democracy could empower workers and promote fairer wages and benefits. One of the best-known advocates for democratic socialism in recent history is Bernie Sanders. Sanders argues that democratic socialism can ensure that the wealthiest individuals and corporations contribute fairly to society, through higher taxes and more equitable distribution of resources. According to a 2020 study by the Institute for Policy Studies, the wealthiest 1% of Americans hold 40% of the nation's wealth. A system of democratic socialism would ensure that wealth is distributed more evenly, benefiting everyone, not just the elite. Democratic socialism doesn't just focus on wealth redistribution, it also prioritizes environmental sustainability. Many socialist-minded countries have implemented policies to reduce carbon emissions and fight climate change. Sweden, for example, has committed to reaching net zero emissions by 2045, with a clear roadmap that includes investments in green technology and renewable energy. The main argument in favor of democratic socialism is that it provides a safety net for the most vulnerable in society. Health issues, job losses, and accidents are part of life, but under capitalism, many people suffer because they can't afford to access necessary services. In socialist models, like those in the Nordic countries, these services are accessible to all, reducing inequality and promoting a sense of social justice. Enjoying the content so far? Be sure to subscribe and don't miss the next chapter where we explore the future of AI-driven economies. Chapter 4, The Rise of Techno-Communism. Is AI the key? Could artificial intelligence, AI, be the answer to building a fairer, more sustainable economic system? As technology continues to advance, some believe that AI could render traditional capitalism obsolete. The idea is simple: if machines can perform most tasks, humans could focus on more meaningful work, while AI takes care of production and resource allocation. This would allow for a world where basic needs, like food, housing, and healthcare, are no longer tied to employment. Take a look at how AI is already revolutionizing industries. In the field of manufacturing, robots have taken over repetitive tasks, increasing productivity. In 2020, the International Federation of Robotics estimated that over 2.7 million industrial robots were in use worldwide. This shift allows humans to focus on creative and strategic tasks, reducing the need for dangerous, low-wage jobs. In theory, AI could automate most sectors, allowing for a post-scarcity economy, where resources are abundant and freely available. This idea is rooted in what's often called techno-communism, a system where the control of production is decentralized, and wealth is shared. In a world where AI governs supply chains and ensures fairness, there would be no need for a capitalist system of profit generation. Instead, people could receive a basic income, freeing them from the need to work for survival. A 2017 report from McKinsey Global Institute found that 15% of the global workforce could be displaced by automation by 2030. However, it also pointed out that automation could create new jobs, as long as society adapts. Yet, the shift to AI-driven economies would require bold political action. How would governments distribute the benefits of automation to all citizens? This could mean implementing a universal basic income, UBI, where everyone receives a set amount of money to cover their living expenses. In 2020, a survey by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that 61% of Americans supported a UBI as a way to cope with job losses caused by automation. The key challenge, though, would be the redistribution of wealth. In a world where the richest individuals and companies control AI technologies, it's crucial that the benefits don't just flow to the elite. A truly fair techno-communist system would require international cooperation and strong regulatory frameworks to prevent monopolies. Ultimately, techno-communism poses an exciting possibility, an economy where human labor is no longer exploited for profit. But this vision of the future requires careful planning and cooperation among governments, businesses, and individuals to ensure that AI benefits everyone, not just the rich and powerful. Chapter 5: The Green Economy. Can eco-socialism replace capitalism? As the climate crisis worsens, many are asking, can capitalism continue to thrive on a planet with finite resources? Eco-socialism, a model that combines environmental sustainability with socialist principles, offers an intriguing alternative. Eco-socialism advocates for the collective management of natural resources, ensuring that both human and environmental needs are met in a fair and equitable way. One of the major flaws of capitalism is its tendency to prioritize short-term profits over long-term sustainability. This is evident in industries like fossil fuels, where companies prioritize drilling for oil and gas, despite the long-term environmental damage. In 2021, the International Energy Agency reported that global carbon emissions rose by 6% as economies recovered from the pandemic, underscoring the need for change. Eco-socialism calls for policies that directly address climate change, such as transitioning to renewable energy and reducing carbon footprints. In countries like Sweden, the government has already set ambitious goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, aiming for net zero emissions by 2045. Sweden's green energy policies have led to significant advancements, with nearly 60% of the country's energy now coming from renewable sources, such as wind and hydroelectric power. This shift toward a green economy is not only beneficial for the environment but also for people. Eco-socialism emphasizes the importance of creating green jobs. In 2020, the International Labour Organization estimated that transitioning to a green economy could create up to 60 million new jobs globally by 2030, in sectors like renewable energy, waste management, and sustainable agriculture. Moreover, eco-socialism challenges the capitalist notion that growth should always be measured by GDP. Instead, it advocates for a steady-state economy, where growth is decoupled from resource extraction. Countries like Costa Rica, which invests heavily in ecotourism and conservation, show that it's possible to grow an economy without degrading the planet. One of the biggest advantages of eco-socialism is its focus on community well-being. Rather than relying on private corporations to solve environmental issues, eco-socialism calls for collective action through public policy. This could involve measures like the nationalization of key industries, including energy, so that environmental and social goals are prioritized over profits. However, eco-socialism faces obstacles in implementation. The global capitalist system is deeply entrenched, and many countries still rely on fossil fuels for economic growth. But with mounting pressure from environmental activists and growing recognition of the climate crisis, eco-socialism could be the key to creating a sustainable and equitable future for all. Chapter 6: Revolutions or Evolution. The future of economic systems. So, where does the future lie? Will we see a revolutionary shift away from capitalism, or will economic systems evolve slowly over time? While both paths are possible, the current global climate points toward the need for radical change. The rapid rise of inequality, the climate crisis, and the destabilizing effects of automation make it clear that the current system is no longer serving the majority of people. One possibility is a revolution in how we think about economics. For example, the rise of decentralized finance, DeFi, technologies is challenging traditional banking systems. In 2021, the DeFi market grew from $5 billion to over $90 billion in value, demonstrating the potential for new economic models that bypass traditional financial institutions. Could decentralized systems replace centralized governments and corporations in the future? It's an idea worth exploring. On the other hand, an evolutionary shift could involve a gradual rethinking of capitalist principles, moving toward hybrid systems like democratic socialism or eco-socialism. The success of countries like Norway, which combine market economies with strong social safety nets, shows that change is possible within the existing framework. These models prove that it's possible to adapt capitalism to meet the needs of a modern, equitable society. Another example of gradual change can be seen in the growing movement for universal basic income. The concept, which has been tested in places like Finland and Stockton, California, is gaining traction as a way to address income inequality and the displacement of workers by automation. A 2021 survey by the Pew Research Center found that 48% of Americans supported UBI, reflecting growing interest in alternative economic systems. Ultimately, the question of whether capitalism will be replaced or reformed depends on collective action. Citizens, activists, and policymakers must come together to create new systems that prioritize human well-being over profit. Whether through revolution or evolution, the future of our economic systems is in our hands. The question is, will we act before it's too late? Don't forget to subscribe for more insights on the future of economies and the big changes on the horizon.